Trump unites historic rivals Japan, China, and South Korea form trade bloc. In an unexpected twist of global politics, Donald Trump has inadvertently achieved what decades of diplomacy could not. He has driven Japan, China, and South Korea, three of Asia's most influential yet historically antagonistic nations, into forging a powerful new free trade bloc. These countries, long entangled in complex territorial disputes, wartime grievances, and fierce economic competition, are now uniting under the shared pressure of U.S. protectionism. For decades, Japan and South Korea have been cornerstones of U.S. foreign policy in Asia, serving as critical allies to balance China's growing influence. Meanwhile, China has been positioned as America's foremost strategic rival, both economically and militarily. However, Trump's aggressive tariff measures and escalating trade war tactics have triggered an extraordinary realignment of interests in East Asia. Faced with steep U.S. tariffs targeting vital exports such as automobiles, semiconductors, electronics, and industrial machinery, these three nations have decided to set aside historical animosities in pursuit of mutual economic survival and strength. And honestly, who would have thought? Maybe all along the secret to Asian unity wasn't decades of peace talks. It was just a guy with bad hair and higher tariffs. What do you think, folks? Is this the wildest geopolitical plot twist of the decade or what? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The newly envisioned trade bloc is not merely a symbolic gesture, it carries profound economic weight. Combined, Japan, China, and South Korea represent roughly 24% of the global economy and approximately 20% of worldwide trade flows, positioning them as a formidable counterbalance to U.S. economic dominance. This bloc is poised to accelerate trilateral free trade negotiations that had previously stalled due to political tensions, creating a unified market that could streamline supply chains, reduce trade barriers, and stimulate cross-border investments across multiple high-value sectors. One of the bloc's main objectives is to shield their industries from the disruptive effects of U.S. tariffs. By coordinating their economic strategies, they can mitigate supply chain vulnerabilities and preserve competitive advantages in global markets. Moreover, there is growing potential for joint investments in emerging technologies, energy security initiatives, and digital infrastructure, further enhancing the bloc's self-reliance. More than just trade volume, the bloc's combined control over critical industries significantly raises the stakes for the global economy. Together, these nations will command nearly 80% of the world's semiconductor production, a sector that serves as the backbone of modern technology, from smartphones to advanced military systems. China, as the world's largest producer of rare earth minerals, essential for the manufacturing of semiconductors, electric vehicle batteries, and renewable energy technologies, holds a strategic advantage in the supply chain. Meanwhile, South Korea continues to dominate in consumer electronics and memory chip production, with global giants like Samsung and SK Hynix at the forefront of technological innovation. Japan remains a leader in advanced robotics, precision machinery, and the automotive industry, with companies like Toyota, Sony, and Fanuc continuing to set global standards. By consolidating their strengths, this alliance can effectively challenge U.S. and European dominance in critical technological domains, potentially setting global standards for next-generation industries such as artificial intelligence, 5G networks, and green technologies. What's your take, folks? Is this the birth of a new economic superpower? Drop your comments below. Oh, and hey, don't forget to share this video if you think your friends should start investing in semiconductors ASAP. Ironically, Trump's America First agenda, which sought to isolate China and reinforce U.S. alliances in Asia, has produced the opposite effect. His policies have inadvertently pushed his closest allies into the arms of America's chief competitor. Japan and South Korea, traditionally wary of China's regional ambitions, now find themselves economically compelled to collaborate more deeply with Beijing to protect their own interests. This emerging alignment is not only a response to tariffs, but also a reflection of broader dissatisfaction with Washington's unpredictability. Asian nations increasingly view regional cooperation as a more stable and pragmatic alternative to relying solely on U.S. economic leadership. This shift could mark the beginning of a new era in global trade dynamics, where Asia leads multilateral efforts to foster free trade and economic integration independently of Western influence. The central question now is whether this union will endure beyond the immediate pressures of the trade war. While historical grievances and strategic mistrust remain, the urgency of economic self-preservation may continue to drive collaboration among these nations. Shared interests in stabilizing supply chains, developing future industries, and defending against external economic coercion could lay the foundation for a long-term partnership. One thing is clear. In his attempt to shield the American economy through unilateral action, Trump may have committed a monumental strategic miscalculation. Rather than isolating China, he has inadvertently unified Asia's most powerful economies into a bloc that could redefine global trade rules and challenge U.S. hegemony for decades to come. Mexico prioritizes dialogue and economic strengthening. In parallel with global developments, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is pursuing direct dialogue and constructive negotiation with the U.S. government. Recognizing the deep economic interdependence between the two countries, Sheinbaum is balancing assertiveness with pragmatism. After China, Japan, and South Korea announced a coordinated response to President Trump's proposed tariffs, Sheinbaum emphasized Mexico's cautious approach, confirming that Mexico will wait for official U.S. announcements before declaring its position. Nonetheless, Mexico is considering alignment with other global powers if circumstances demand, understanding that unity among major economies can strengthen negotiating leverage. Simultaneously, Mexico is taking proactive steps to protect its economic interests. A large portion of vehicles produced in Mexico, especially trucks, SUVs, and mid-size cars, are exported to the U.S. Meanwhile, many compact, affordable cars sold in Mexico are currently made in China. In response, Mexico is actively seeking to attract such production to its own territory, aiming to localize supply chains, create jobs, and strengthen domestic manufacturing. Mexico's approach goes beyond reactive measures. It forms part of a long-term strategy to build a resilient, diversified economy. High-level bilateral discussions with U.S. officials are ongoing to minimize trade disruptions. Domestically, task forces within the Ministry of Economy are meeting regularly to craft policies that reduce import dependence and boost local production. Ultimately, Mexico seeks a healthier, more balanced trade relationship with the U.S., positioning itself as a resilient and self-reliant pillar of the North American economy. Leveraging the USMCA, TEMEC, to avoid tariff impacts. A key element of Mexico's economic defense strategy is the strategic use of the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, known in Mexico as Tratado entre México, Estados Unidos y Canada, TMEC. In response to rising tariff threats, Mexican authorities are urging exporters to prioritize the USMCA's preferential framework over the less secure, most favored nation, MFN status under WTO rules. The government aims for at least 80% of Mexican exporters to fully utilize USMCA benefits, shielding their products from potential tariffs and enhancing trade stability. This strategy brings clear advantages for critical sectors such as automotive, steel, aluminum, and agriculture. The USMCA's strict rules of origin promote regional sourcing, encouraging Mexican manufacturers to procure materials domestically or from North American partners. This approach strengthens local industries, supports job creation, and deepens North American economic integration. To support this goal, Mexico's Ministry of Economy is working closely with business leaders, trade associations, and exporters. The government is providing training sessions, technical guidelines, and advisory support to help businesses, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, navigate the complexities of trade compliance. By leveraging the USMCA not only as a protective measure, but also as a growth catalyst, Mexico is reinforcing its role in North American trade, safeguarding its export-driven economy, and advancing broader goals of industrial modernization and sustainable development. Mexican economy faces global volatility with resilience. Amid growing concerns about a potential economic downturn, President Claudia Sheinbaum reassured both domestic and international audiences that Mexico's economy remains fundamentally sound and resilient, even in the face of global market turbulence. While there have been short-term fluctuations, notably a modest depreciation of the Mexican peso, which has hovered around 20 to 21 pesos per US dollar, Sheinbaum emphasized that these movements remain within manageable and expected parameters. She clearly attributed the current volatility not to structural weaknesses within Mexico's own economy, but largely to external pressures, particularly the aggressive and unpredictable policy shifts coming from the United States. These include the prospect of sweeping tariffs under the Trump administration's agenda, which have rattled global financial markets and created uncertainty across North America. In preparation for the anticipated U.S. policy announcement scheduled for April 2nd, the Mexican government is maintaining close and continuous dialogue with both domestic industries and international stakeholders. High-level meetings with representatives of Mexico's key economic sectors are being held to assess potential impacts and devise strategies to mitigate risks. At the same time, Mexico is in active communication with its global partners to ensure coordinated responses that uphold trade stability. Sheinbaum underscored that Mexico's diversified economy, supported by strong manufacturing, growing services sectors, and increasing investment in renewable energy and technology, provides a solid foundation to weather external shocks. The administration remains focused on reinforcing investor confidence, sustaining employment, and pursuing long-term economic resilience in the face of uncertain global conditions. Mexico-Canada cooperation against U.S. tariffs. As tensions surrounding U.S. trade policy continue to mount, Mexico and Canada have intensified their consultations to develop a united front. While an official bilateral working group dedicated to this specific issue has not yet been established, both countries maintain a steady flow of communication at the ministerial and diplomatic levels. They share a clear alignment of interests, especially with respect to preserving the integrity and benefits of the USMCA TEMEC agreement. Both governments have agreed to closely monitor developments, particularly the expected U.S. announcement on April 2nd, before taking further coordinated action. President Sheinbaum emphasized that Mexico and Canada view their economic relationship as not only complementary, but strategically vital in confronting unilateral trade threats from the United States. Canada remains one of Mexico's most important trading partners, and both nations benefit from integrated supply chains in critical industries such as automotive manufacturing, energy, and agriculture. President Sheinbaum and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau have reaffirmed their commitment to defending shared interests through open dialogue and collaboration. They recognize that solidarity within North America will be key to preserving regional economic stability. Both countries are prepared to engage with the United States as unified voices, seeking to de-escalate tensions while firmly protecting their sovereign economic rights under the USMCA framework. Moreover, ongoing diplomatic engagement aims to prevent unnecessary disruptions to trade and investment flows between the three countries. Mexico and Canada continue to advocate for a cooperative approach, emphasizing that a stable and predictable trade environment benefits not only North America but the global economy as a whole. Diplomacy over retaliation, Mexico's guiding principle. In her concluding remarks on the evolving trade situation, President Sheinbaum reiterated Mexico's steadfast commitment to diplomacy and constructive engagement as the first line of response. While Mexico is fully prepared to implement protective measures if necessary to safeguard its economy, Sheinbaum made it clear that her administration rejects the approach of immediate retaliation, which could lead to a harmful escalation of tensions. Instead, Mexico is prioritizing continuous dialogue with the United States, Canada, and other international partners. The Sheinbaum administration believes that sustained communication and diplomatic efforts remain the most effective means of resolving disputes and finding mutually beneficial solutions, even in the face of unilateral pressures from Washington. Sheinbaum underscored that Mexico's primary responsibility is to its own people, to preserve economic stability, protect jobs, and ensure the well-being of Mexican families. She affirmed that while Mexico stands ready to defend its interests with firmness, it will do so through legal avenues, multilateral frameworks, and by advocating for fair and open trade practices. Mexico's commitment to a diplomatic path reflects a broader philosophy of responsible global citizenship. Amid rising trade tensions and increasing global fragmentation, Mexico is determined to position itself as a nation that seeks bridges over barriers and cooperation over conflict. By adhering to these principles, Mexico aims not only to shield its economy in the short term, but to strengthen its international standing and build a more sustainable and inclusive future.